Hi guys, so I thought I'd do a little video covering video game adaptations. It just so happens that I'm a massive gamer. I've played games my entire life, so probably over 40 years at this point. I probably play games slightly more than I watch movies, even despite the fact that I've chosen to do this as a YouTube channel. If I had to give up either games or movies, that would be an impossible choice for me. But in terms of this ranking, I've decided to include one rule today, and that is that we can only have one film per franchise. And I've done that so that we don't end up with like 7 Resident Evil movies in the 10 slots, because I think that would be kind of boring. I wanted to have some variety today. I challenged myself to come up with 10 completely different ones, and I just about managed it. I've even got an honourable mention, which would be the Prince of Persia movie, which came out in 2010. I used to love the original Prince of Persia game on the Amiga back in the 90s, not so much the more modern ones that came out on PS2. But I checked out the movie. It's got Jake Gyllenhaal in the lead role, and from memory, it's a passable sort of adventure film, but nothing special, and I've not included it in my top 10 today. But speaking of which, it's now time to get into that top 10, and we will, of course, start with the film that just sneaked in 10th spot. At number 10, we have Five Nights at Freddy's. So I'll say straight away that I've never actually played any of the games for this, but my kids have watched a lot of it on YouTube. And if I'm totally honest with myself, one of the biggest reasons I went to see this at the cinema was so I could say to my kids, hey, you know that Five Nights at Freddy's stuff you've been watching on YouTube? Well, I'm off to watch the movie, but you can't come because it's like a 15 rating. Yeah, I know, I'm a cruel dad. Sue me. And I knew that the following day, after my cinema trip, they would be like asking me questions about what happened and which characters would be in it, and they did exactly that. I didn't enjoy the movie, though. I probably deserved a bad movie, and that's exactly what I got. I think I gave it 2 out of 5 when I did my review on the channel, but since that experience, I've watched the film again with my kids at home because I didn't judge it to be a particularly horrific horror movie, so I thought it would be okay for them to watch it. I mean, my 2 oldest are like 13 and 14 anyway at this point, so we all watched it together one Friday night, and it was fun watching them being creeped out by this very tame horror movie, because it might have been their first ever horror movie, to be honest, but I enjoyed it slightly more just knowing that they were enjoying it, kind of a thing. So I've made my peace with this film, even though it's not particularly great. There is a second film on the way, supposedly. I will not be going to the cinema to see that one. I may check it out when it comes on Amazon or whatever, and I might even do a review of it, who knows. At number 9, we have Monster Hunter. Turns out I don't play these games either. I do play lots of games, promise, just not Monster Hunter or Five Nights at Freddy's. But what attracted me to this film was the fact that Paul W. Anderson was directing it, and Mila Jovovich was starring in it. Those two, who are married in real life, are essentially responsible for all the Resident Evil films, which I really like. And I kind of thought that this was going to be a kind of similar thing to that, just with a different title. But unfortunately, it really disappointed. This is Aliens meets Pitch Black. It's Jovovich running around on a deserty, sort of arid planet, just blasting anything that moves. That's what it is. It's Jovovich shooting at CGI monsters, as far as I can remember. Just very dull for the most part. And what made this experience doubly frustrating is the fact that I saw it at the cinema with my wife. It was a rare Saturday afternoon where the kids were with the grandparents, so we went to watch a movie, and this was pretty much the only thing on. I usually find it very hard to get my wife to watch any horror movies, so on those rare times when she does watch one with me, and it turns out to be this subpar, very frustrating. So, not great. I'm probably over-egging it slightly. I mean, some people might enjoy this movie, and certainly if you've played the games, you might get a lot more out of it than I did. I do remember one good sequence where Mila is running through a disgusting hive full of creatures, and we're just discovering what these things are. That whole section did send a few chills up my spine, but other than that, I can barely even remember this movie now, and I only reviewed it like a couple of years ago. I gave this one 2 out of 5 as well, I think. At number 8, we have Until Dawn. The movie version of this was what gave me the idea for doing this video, because I saw it just a few weeks ago at the cinema. As for the game, this is one I have actually played. It came out 2016, something like that. We're talking PlayStation 4 era. It's essentially an interactive story type game. It's the ideal thing, actually, for someone who enjoys horror movies, but they're thinking of getting into horror games, but maybe they're not that confident about video games in general, because Until Dawn is much more about enjoying the story and the characters than it is about showcasing any kind of great gaming skill. Just the sort of game, in other words, that I imagine I'll be playing a lot of in my 80s when my gaming skills are long gone. But the movie sadly veers away from what the game was. The game was about a bunch of youngsters trying to survive a Wendigo or two in a snowy part of the mountains. The film is more of a cabin in the woods type experience where we've got several different monsters and villains because of supernatural reasons enabling that, and it doesn't feel like the same thing for me. I mean, it's still an all right time. I gave this 2.5 out of 5 when I reviewed it, and if you want to check that video out, then go for it. It's still quite high up on my recent videos list, but this is not one that I'm bothered about there ever being a sequel for, although I would absolutely play the game again, potentially. At number 7, we have Minecraft. So, according to my PlayStation profile, I have played over 600 hours on this game over the years. But a lot of that would have been playing multiplayer with various members of my family, because this is a very popular game in my household. It's something that we all enjoy and we can all do together as a family. Not too many of those 600 hours would have been done in solo, if you see what I mean. I wouldn't count this as one of my favourite games of all time, not even close, but if I was going to prison and I was told that I could only have one game for a 10-year stretch, I might choose this because it's kind of endless. You can just keep playing it and playing it, whereas my favourite games of all time, my favourite's probably Alien Isolation or The Last of Us 2. It would be one of those two games. If I took one of those two games to prison, I'd be done in 15 hours and then I wouldn't feel like playing it again for a few years. So yeah, I'd probably choose Minecraft in that hypothetical situation. When it comes to the movie of this, it's not what I would have done with it if I was in charge. I would have made more of a survival film, a thriller bordering on a horror film. But I get why they've pretty much done completely the opposite. I mean, this is a very fluffy comedy film full of candy floss and bubbles. It's not my sort of movie usually, but I have to admit I really did laugh along with it. I found it genuinely funny. So did my family. Like, all 5 of us went to watch this at the cinema together and we had a cracking good time. I would give this movie 4 out of 5 because I think it's very successful in what it tries to do, and I would absolutely watch a sequel, which is probably what they're going to do, because the first film made an absolute ton of money, although it's not a film that I would watch alone. If the sequel comes out and my kids are all grown up at that point and they don't want to watch it, then I probably won't go and watch it. But if it ends up being another family affair, so be it. I'm up for doing that all over again. At number 6, we have Hitman. I've never played any of the games, but I've always kind of wanted to. I'm a gamer who constantly carries a shortlist in my head of the games I might want to play next after whatever I'm playing in the moment. And Hitman always seems to have a permanent place on that shortlist. It just never seems to get to the top of that shortlist, if you see what I mean. But I have to think I will at some point in my life try these games, because I think I would enjoy Hitman somehow, instinctively. But I did see the movie. I can't remember when it came out, 10 or 15 years ago. I'm talking about the original Hitman, because there are 2 Hitman movies. But the first one is a good little John Wick light sort of film. Agent 47, played by Timothy Oliphant in the original. He's running around killing guys by the half dozen. There's at least two excellent action sequences from what I can remember. I think I might have seen this film twice, actually. It does fade a little bit towards the end of the film, from what I can remember, but it's still a solid time. I'd give this film 3.5 out of 5. So by rights, I should have put Minecraft above it because I gave Minecraft 4. But Hitman is just my sort of movie, more so than Minecraft. At number 5, we have Tomb Raider from 2018. Cards on the table time. I'm a massive fan of the Tomb Raider gaming franchise. I've played all the games going way back to my university days. If I told you that I once did a 2-year term as a moderator on the Tomb Raider gaming forums, that should probably tell you everything you need to know about how I feel about this franchise. So, as you can imagine, I've always had a big interest in what the screen adaptations would be like, and I didn't think that they did a particularly great job with the Angelina Jolie ones. So, first Tomb Raider movie came out in 2001. I went to see it at the cinema with my dad. I don't think he particularly enjoyed it. I thought it was kind of okay, but I just felt at the time like they were just doing it wrong. It didn't feel like what you would want a Tomb Raider movie to be. That there wasn't nearly enough isolationism in the film, for one thing. And the second movie, Cradle of Life, that came out in 2004, even worse. Instead of taking the first film and improving on it, making it better, they just seemed to double down and just make it even worse. And I'm not surprised that at that point the Jolie films just ended financially, creatively. They were just absolutely done at that point. This reboot film from 2018, much better. This feels like more the kind of film you would want adapted from Tomb Raider. The Lara character here, played by Alicia Vikander, if I've got her name right, she feels like more of a human character than the Jolie version of Tomb Raider. And for 75% of this movie, I just think it's absolutely fantastic. It's mainly based on the 2013 gaming reboot. Towards the end of the film, it kind of goes back to being more like a Jolie type thing. I don't know why. This film gets a little bit cheesy towards the end. That's the only bad mark I'd give against it. But I still think it's comfortably the best of the 3 Tomb Raider movies so far. It is a shame that there's not going to be any more Vikander ones, but it'll be interesting to see what they do with this in the future. I'm sure at some point they will make another Tomb Raider movie. But yeah, I love the franchise, and I'm definitely sad that I can't place it higher than number 5. At number 4, we have Fatal Frame. This is a horror franchise. It's known as Fatal Frame in many parts of the world, but in Europe, it's mostly known as Project Zero. That's how I've always known it as anyway. There are 5 video games for this. I bought the first one in the middle of the noughties, probably not that long after it came out. We're talking PlayStation 2 era. I'd never even heard of it until the day that I bought it. I was literally in a store. I saw it on a shelf. I picked it up, looked at it and thought, oh, this looks pretty good. And I just dropped 15 quid on it right then and there. And it was a good little gamble because I absolutely loved that game. And I've played most of these in the years since, but you can only actually get the most recent 2 Project Zero games on the modern consoles. The first 3 have never been ported, which is a real shame. The movie is something I didn't even know existed until last year. I did a review of it on the channel when I found out, but it came out like back in 2014 and I just never knew that it was a thing, like all those years. It feels very different from the games. The games take place entirely at night. You play a young woman usually who's going around a dark mansion and you have to kill ghosts by firing your camera shutter at them. It's way better than it sounds. These are genuinely scary games. But the movie is entirely set during the daytime, which gives it a very different feel, and yet it's still really good. It's concerned with school suicides and their connection to the supernatural. It's a very good slow dread sort of a movie, and it's free on YouTube, so why don't you check it out? It's a good copy that's on YouTube from memory as well. It is subtitled. I'd recommend the games and the films for this. I'm definitely something of a Project Zero / Fatal Frame fan. At number 3, we have Resident Evil. So it's probably no surprise to anybody that Resi has cropped up somewhere in this video. What might be a surprise is that I've chosen Afterlife as my Resi film of choice. I just so happen to think that this was where they perfected the formula during those first 6 movies. I love this one. We got a bunch of people in a prison in LA surrounded by zombies, and it's an absolute riot. I could watch this film over and over. It's so much fun. In terms of the games, I've probably completed about half of them. There are lots of Resident Evil games. The other half I probably not even played. So I can't call myself a mega fan of this franchise, but I do really like it. I've played lots of these games. So whether it's films, games, or animated movies even, because there are some good Resident Evil animated films as well, I'm always happy to dabble in anything involving this franchise. At number 2, we have Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within. Now, I used to be a huge fan of the games. If I go back to the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 era, so the Final Fantasy games that would have been out around about that time, 7, 8, 9, 10, I loved those games. I put like hundreds of hours into them, and then I just kind of stopped playing them after a point. I think Final Fantasy X, the sequel, was the last one that I played, and that was like 20 years ago at this point. I think once they started putting out online games, I kind of lost interest a little bit. I drifted away. I've always meant to go back and check out some of the more recent Final Fantasy games, but I just never get around to it. Although I have played some of the really old school ones between like 1 and 6, because they released those on the PlayStation Store a short while ago. The film that came out in 2001, I believe, The Spirits Within, it's not based on any one game, but I've allowed it into this ranking because traditionally Final Fantasy is a series that has a completely different world and a new set of characters with every single installment. So I don't think it's a problem what they did with this movie, although the fact that it was a completely new thing, I think that put off a lot of people. I think a lot of fans of this series would have wanted a screen adaptation of like Final Fantasy VII instead, for example. But I think it's a shame that this movie didn't do well, because it is absolutely superb. It's a film that deserves to be seen. It deserves to have a second wind at some point, if that's even possible. As a standalone sci-fi animated movie, it's brilliant. It's a very mature film. I really liked it when it came out. And just talking about it today, it's really made me want to pick up a cheap copy and check it out again all these years later. I can't remember the story at all. I just remember it was really good. So, you know what? Maybe I'll even do a review of this film at some point. It wouldn't be my normal type of stuff, but I think it's worth it just to get more eyes on this film, because it's a damn good movie, and it almost won this ranking today, but not quite. So it's now time to find out what is my favourite video game to movie adaptation. If you haven't guessed what my number 1 is, I'm now about to put you out of your misery. And if you have guessed, what an arrogant person you are, thinking you know me, thinking you know what I've put at number 1. You know what? I hope you're wrong. I hope it's something that you weren't guessing. Right, enough waffle. Let's find out what it is. So yeah, the number 1 is Silent Hill from 2006. I absolutely love this movie. It's in my top 10 films of all time. Again, though, similar to Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within, I don't think it was massively appreciated when it came out. Might not even be massively loved today, and I think there's a couple of reasons for that. Firstly, I don't think people loved the CGI in this when it was released. I think CGI in horror films was still relatively new in the noughties. Not everybody loved seeing it, but I think the special effects in this movie have aged quite well. Actually, I think they look really good. And the second thing to note is that this has got quite a convoluted storyline for a horror film, especially. And I can remember coming out of the cinema viewing that I went on and hearing lots of people talking about this. You know, when you go to the cinema, just as you're walking out, you get in like a little bottleneck of lots of people shuffling for the door, and you can hear lots of snippets of conversations nearby from people asking each other what they thought of the movie. I heard so many comments that were kind of like this. I didn't get it. What was that flashback about? Why did it have to be so complicated? Like loads of people saying stuff like that. But it's a movie that if you persist with it, it's so rewarding. I've seen it so many times since that initial watch, and I just love it now. I think it works on every level. I did a review of this a few years ago now, I guess, and I gave it like a full 5 out of 5. I just love this movie, and the games as well, especially the original trilogy. So the first 3 Silent Hill games are the business. The original one, which was on the PlayStation 1, I had that way back in the day, loved it. I bought Silent Hill 2 at the same time as I was buying my PlayStation 2. It was the first game I wanted, and I loved it. Silent Hill 3 is possibly my favourite of the bunch. And I've not played any of the ones since then. I don't really know why. I kind of drifted away from the series, kind of similar to how I drifted away from Final Fantasy. But that original trilogy of games, so good. And I absolutely love this movie, as I've said. Right, we'll leave it there for today. Thank you for joining me on this journey where I've talked about my favourite video game adaptations. I'll be back for another video very soon. Until next time, as always, cheerio, bye-bye.